So Miriam, you are now going on basically 24 years of being an artist, 2 years with Joyful Light and then full-time this last entire year. So tell us, what made you want to become an artist?
I think it's something I've always wanted to do. Like I said, 24 years of creating is what I say. I'm 26 years old, and so as soon as I could hold something in my hand, I was immediately drawing pictures, whether it was rainbows or smiley faces, and I would always just be covered in whatever I was using, whether it was paint or clay. And so my parents saw that it was a huge passion of mine, and they continued to just encourage me to create as much as I could. And so when I was in high school, I took 7 art classes, as many as I could fit in, along with my other required classes. And that's where I learned how to do very specific techniques and how to use different materials, like acrylic paint was the first official material I was able to, in a way, master. And then I also took ceramics, I took drawing, and I was able to kind of play around with different materials while I was in high school, learn what I liked to use. Unfortunately, I never found a favorite, so when I went to college, I went for art education so I could do all of them. And I went to Viterbo for 3 years, and while I was there, I just created nonstop. I learned almost every type of material out there. I did printmaking, painting, ceramics, drawing, design as well. And in each of those classes, I was just able to refine my technique along with just my overall style as an artist too. I did a lot of acrylic painting, and so I really was able to loosen up my brush strokes there and kind of have more of an impressionistic style with my acrylics. And then when it came to printmaking and drawing, I was able to become much more detailed in my art as well. And so after that, I was given this lyrics journal that my mom gave me as a gift. And one connection that we have is we love worship music, and I love creating artwork based off of those things. And so she gave me this art journal on my birthday 4 years ago. And the first year that I had that journal, the week of my birthday, the following year was when I filled out the last page. So it's a year's worth of growth personally, but also just as an artist as well, kind of playing around with materials, with styles. And I learned a lot with how to work with watercolor during that time as well. From there, 2 years ago, I was encouraged to officially just start selling my art, because if it's something I'm so passionate about and I love to do, why not be able to give it to somebody else as a gift and as a blessing to share my artwork as much as possible. And so I officially launched Joyful Light 2 years ago. I created my own logo. I started doing fun projects for my friends at first. And then when I got married in October of last year, we were able to figure out how I could become a full-time artist as well. And so since then, it's been a roller coaster of doing anything from painting on windows for a dentist office to doing a 4-generation portrait, which is a picture that we have at the Treehouse right now. And the first time I was asked to do a portrait, I was terrified. I never thought I would do portraits, but it was for a Christmas present for one of my friend's girlfriends, and he just sent me a picture and he said, "Could you do this?" And I was like, "I can try." And during that portrait piece, I just really learned how to hone in on materials, what types of brushes, when to use the pencils, when to use the gel pens, when to do the smaller details versus the larger details. And he absolutely loved it. His girlfriend loved it, and she posted it on Facebook. And since then, I've been asked several times to create more portrait pieces for people. So every portrait I do, I learn more about how to do those specific details, and I'm able to really capture that idea of custom art, because I can take a 4-generation picture where the oldest member, the great-grandfather, passed away before the picture was taken, and I can paint him in the background with his hand on the new dad's shoulder. And so it's something that you can't even get from photography. You can't get from an artist's original work because it's not specific for that person. And so I love taking different references and different pieces for these portraits and piecing them together so it captures the memory of who those people were or who they currently are. If it's your family, if it's your spouse, if it's recapturing your wedding day or recapturing when your child was born, different things like that I'm able to do in a much more intimate and customized way.
So, Miriam, tell me a little bit about all these supplies you got here.
Yes, this is actually all that I use for my watercolor paintings that I do. So very similar to what I did with this portrait here. This is my absolute favorite tool that I use every single time I do a watercolor piece. This is the reason I do watercolor paintings, actually. I never ever wanted to try watercolor because to me it was just very intimidating. And in my drawing 3 class at Viterbo, actually, I was given this brush, which is a brush with water in the stem, so you can squeeze out the water to whatever extent you want. You can use that, and then you can paint on the paper however you need to. And so it's a really nice way to control that water element that can be very intimidating with watercolor. And I never looked back. Once I tried it, I loved it, and then I continued just learning more about how to use the colors. We also create these fun little palettes here, which are all in Altoids tins, and they have the little watercolor, which is very, very vibrant within these, and so you just squeeze the paint actually in each of those little squares, and once it dries you can use it many times. It lasts an incredible amount of time, and it creates colors very similar to this where it's always going to be very vibrant. So I love that too, and that I always use for my baseline for most of my paintings. As you saw with this one, I did it all just using these paints here. I also have these ink blocks here, which are also water soluble, and so all you have to do is add a little bit of water to them, and then it's that immediate vibrancy again that I really love and enjoy. And I use a lot of skin tone colors for my portraits because it's really helpful when you don't have a paint that is skin color. You have to learn how to layer the colors together to make it still look like a skin tone, as you can see in those ones too. And so the other things that I use are watercolor pencils. So again, they work very similar to the ink blocks where you add water, they blend in very nicely, but these I use for those very tiny, intricate details that you can see in the cloth, in the ears, in the eyes, anything very small and hard to do with even a small brush. I go in with the watercolor pencils, and then I can add water afterwards to blend it together very nicely. And these are my secret, kind of bringing me back to childhood. They are gel pens, it is what it looks like. And this is what I use for my highlights, actually. And so once you use watercolor, if there's pigment on the page, it's almost impossible to go back to white unless you incorporate a different type of paint, like acrylic. And so I found that when I use gel pens, it works very similar to using that acrylic paint, only it's much smaller, so you can get those tiny details like in those hairs and the little scruff on the side there. And it also works with a brush, and so you can blend it in to create a very nice highlight with those small details too. And then the last thing I have here, actually, I don't use with my portraits, but I use with all of my lyrics drawings that I was flipping through and showing you earlier. It is a fountain pen, which is my absolute favorite tool next to the brush, of course, but it's refillable, and so I have my ink bottle here, and anytime I run out of ink, you just have to untwist it, and then you refill it, kind of like a little syringe. And so I can use that as much as I want. That's where I can get those very bright blues, which I love because I'm Dutch as well. And so I love that cultural Delft blue because I think it's a very fun environment as well. But these are all the tools that I use when it comes to watercolor.
Very fun, your own traveling studio.
Yes, it's very easy to just close them up, stick in my purse, and then I'm good to go wherever I am.
Thank you for sharing those.
Of course.
And we hope you can come see more at the Coffee with our local artist, Miriam Cavanaugh, September 28th from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. Thank you so much for joining us and hope to see you then.